You have to excuse me because I've worked with kids for a long time, like 25 years. So first of all, we've all had lunch. We're ready for a nap, so I'm going to make you guys all stand up. And we're all going to do head, shoulders, knees, and toes. So don't hit your heads on the tables. Hey, are we ready? Head, shoulders, knees and toes, knees and toes, knees and toes. Head, shoulders, knees and toes. Eyes, ears, mouth, and nose. I didn't hear you guys very well. So I think we're going to do it one more time, a little bit faster. Ready? Head, shoulders, knees and toes, knees and toes, knees and toes. Head, shoulders, knees and toes, eyes, ears, mouth, and nose. Much better. Okay, I will let you get away with just 2. So the purpose of doing that is because when you guys get into these classrooms, that's one of the first things you want to do, is get the wiggles out. And you can, there's some ideas in the curriculum, but you can do anything with it. Faster. One day I went in to my class, I'll give you a little bit of background. So last semester I was an intern and I taught this class. But like I said, I've worked with kids for a long time. But one day I let each one of them choose, and we were robots singing it, we were dinosaurs, we were fairies, we were doing all kinds of stuff, we were doing different voices. So change it up, like this is the best class. You guys are so lucky because this is the funnest class. You can do so much with them, and it's so exciting. One thing to remember is these kids have been in school, well, some of them may have been in school. So I'll talk about the dynamics of this class. It's a little bit tricky because of the age that you guys have, but they don't want to come and just sit in desks like what you guys are doing for the rest of the night. So you get to have fun with them. And the curriculum that you have, there's definitely ways to have fun with them so that you're not just talking to them the whole night. So now our next activity, so now that's one thing that you'll want to do is just get their wiggles out every class, and then after that get to know your kids, get to know the class. And so each class you want to do just a little activity that you can get to know them or open up a conversation. So I have a dice and I want you guys to take turns. Tell me your name, what site you're at, and then we're going to roll the dice and answer that question. So I'm Lisa McKay. I am not out of sight. I was at Vista last semester. And I love this program. My family participated in it as a family, and then when I was finishing up school, I didn't go to UVU, but I sought out this program to see if I could be a part of it, to be a part of the internship. So I really enjoy it, and now I'm working with the program. And I will roll the dice. Number 2, my favorite drink, I would say raspberry lemonade with the real raspberries. That's a good one. Okay.
Okay, my name's Tara. I'm at Orem. Ooh, 6. Favorite side dish. Oh, the first thing that came to mind was just fries. I don't know. Fries are great. It's not really a side dish. Maybe it is.
I'm Callie. I'm at Pleasant Grove. Was that all I was supposed to?
Yep.
Okay, and favorite drink? Dr. Pepper.
Dr. Pepper.
Okay, I'm Jessica. I'm also at Pleasant Grove. 3, favorite candy, Kit Kat.
My name is also Jessica. I'm in Lehigh. My favorite ice cream is cake batter.
Yummy cake batter.
Skylar, I'm at American Fork. And 4, favorite ice cream, mint chocolate chip.
Yummy. Now we all ate dinner or lunch, so that didn't make us too hungry, right? We may have to stop on our way home to get a thing of ice cream. Cookies and cream is my favorite. So, all right, so that's another thing that you'll want to kind of do each class. So that's why I tried to embarrass you a little bit, or myself. Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about this class. It's kind of tricky because we don't really know who's going to sign up for this for the program. So some sites may not have any that are in this age, where some sites like Vista tends to have a lot of kids, and so there could be a 10. So when it gets closer, they'll go through and they'll just kind of look at the ages and kind of make the classes even. Also, there are some sites that they don't have enough interns, and so those sites, they may have more service learning people coming to help, and so they've even talked about maybe having the toddlers, and then that preschool age, the 4 and 5-year-olds, will also be with the service learning classes, which would bump you guys up to the next age group. So it kind of makes it tricky, because you really don't know what you're going to get. And that's why you guys are awesome, because you just have to kind of roll with it and be flexible. So one thing about this age group is you may have those, because that very first night, you'll kind of look and evaluate and see how the kids are with each other and with the group, and if they're going to be able to handle it. There may be some rearranging. Sometimes those, if you have a little bit one that's a little bit older in the service learning toddler class, they may bump that 3-year-old up to your class. Or if they're having a harder time and they need to be with brother or sister, or different things. If there's one that just is not quite a 4-year-old that's really kind of struggling, they may bump them down. And so you may have kids that have never been to school and they're kind of squirrely, they don't really pay attention, different things like that. Or you may have first graders who they've figured out how to sit and listen to a teacher. And does that make sense? So you kind of have a different dynamic of kids, and you just don't know until you get there. Some other things about that class is, how many of you have worked with kids? Just so I know, like when if I need to start with the basics, but I'll kind of do the basics for future people who are listening in. But this class also, with these children, they have all kinds of energy levels. There are some that can sit and color forever, and there are some that 2 minutes and that's all you get, and they want to move on and go to the next activity. So you may have that going on in there, and then these families, they may have a lot of things going on at home, and so you may get little tidbits of stuff that's going on at home. Just try to be understanding and respectful of different things, because they will start getting to know you and comfortable with you and may open up. If there's anything that is revealed to you that you are concerned about, make sure that you go to your MSW or BSW or your site education coordinator, and they can discuss it with you, or go to the family, or report it with the incident or whatever like that, with any of that needs to be done. So their attention spans vary. We kind of covered that a little bit. And the little things will throw them off. So holidays, I was lucky to have the day after Halloween. That was insane. So be aware. It can be the littlest things. It can be Dad went on a business trip for a week, and so that child is thrown off that day and be having a rough day. It can be we were recorded in our class, and that day was crazy because all of these people were coming and putting microphones into their faces, and so even though they were in there for 5 minutes, it just threw their whole day off. So be aware that little things can throw them off, and you just kind of have to roll with it and go with it. So what else? This age, some of them struggle with separation anxiety. Do you guys know what that is? So it's when they kind of have a hard time saying goodbye to mom and dad. Some helpful techniques to be able to do if they're struggling with that. Sometimes it's helpful for that first night if you go around and kind of look and see what might be, who might be in your class. Just kind of talk to them a little bit. And you can even do it on registration night. a lot of, because you'll be there and the families will be coming through. And if you just kind of look, oh, they possibly could be, just, introduce yourself, kind of, get to know them a little bit. Having that familiar face before they get there will help. And then try to get down on their level, talk to them, tell them what exciting things you have planned. We're going to be, playing with stickers today. We're going to be going on a scavenger hunt today. Anything that will because even it may not even just be the first time, it may be down the road. They've been gone for a week and they're coming back, or they're just having an off day. They may still struggle. So, you can just tell them it's something exciting that you're doing to get them to want to come, take their hand, try to make the goodbyes brief, because a lot of times if they are drawn out, they want it just makes it harder. Sometimes they do it for a lot of different reasons, and so just take them by the hand. Come on, let's go. We're gonna go have so much fun, and just head off. So those are some helpful hints that can help with the separation anxiety there. Do you have any questions? No, you guys are quiet. Just wait. Attitude. I want to talk about this one because in all of my years that I've worked with children, whatever you bring into the classroom will affect that classroom. So it is so important for you to go in with a smile on your face, be happy, be cheerful. You may be tired because you've gone to school all day, you've worked full time, and you've got a million hours of homework, and you just don't know if you can handle it, but just leave it at the door and give those kids your 100% for that hour and a half, And so, have any of you ever worked in a call center? It's been a lot of years since I've worked in the call center, but what do they tell you? What kind of hints do they tell you when you're talking on the phone? Smile, that's exactly. So even though those people cannot see you when you're on the phone, they say to smile because they can hear it in your voice. And that's exactly the same thing with kids. Like, you go in there and you smile, you can have the worst day ever, and if you're smiling, it's kind of like you fake it until you make it. Those kids will be totally different behavior as long as they know that you're happy. So that's a big one. Make sure that your attitude is good and happy. Let's see. Okay. All of these things I'm kind of talking about are in your notes, so you can take them home and just review them if you need to. So why do you guys think it is important to get to know the kids in your class or to bond with them? Any ideas?
Well, I want to feel like you care about them.
They want to feel that you care about them? Very good. Anything else, you think?
I think if you get to know them, they'll respect you and probably listen to you more.
Yes, they'll respect you and listen. Very good.
They'll want to be in your class.
You want to be in your class? Yeah.
Make it more fun.
Make it more fun? Yep. Very good. I think you just covered it. So yes, it's definitely important to have that bond with them, because they will. If you have problems with any of the kids, it's a lot easier if you have that relationship and that bond with that child. They will listen to you more when you have some kind of issue that you need to take care of. Let's say they're hitting another child or whatever. It will be a lot easier to take care of those negative behaviors if you've established that relationship really fast right off the bat. So you definitely want to get in there and work on that relationship. What are some ways that we can do that? Yes. First thing, the very first week, learn their names and use them. So very important. And that's coming from me, who I have the hardest time remembering names. And even on the week 9, I would ask my co-teacher, now is that so-and-so or that so-and-so? But I made sure I knew it before I walked in that door so that I could use them throughout the class. So yes, learn their names. Be on their level. It's very important to sit down. If I wasn't being recorded, I'd probably pull this around and just sit right here and we'd be in a circle. So get down on their level. I know sometimes it's hard to sit on the floor for that long, especially as we get older, but get down as much on their level as possible. And then even when you're talking to them, rather than if they come up here, don't talk down to them. Get down on their level so that you're talking like this and have a conversation with them so that they know that you care about them. So that's another idea. Also, when your co-teacher is talking or teaching, be involved in what's going on. So if there's a video that you're watching at that time, go, instead of being in front of them, go back with them and sit among them, and watch the video or listen to the story or help them get engaged into whatever is going on. So those kind of some helpful hints on how to bond with the class and the children. Also important for this age is to be flexible. I kind of touched on that before. Why do you think we need to be flexible with some of the things that we've already discussed? Why do you think that's kind of important? So sometimes they might have more energy, some of them might be tired. You just never know what you're going to get. And your class will definitely run a little bit more smoothly if you can pick that up from those kids, can read them and know what they need and what they want. So very good. So the attention spans. And the attention spans may vary. It varies per child, it varies per day. You just never know. So definitely go into the class with a few tricks up your sleeve. Like if you have those tricks, you'll be prepared for anything. Anything else before I move on? Okay. And that's another thing, if you're bonding with those kids. And you may have a child who loves cars, and they will, if they have a car in their hand, they'll sit forever and listen. So if you know those kids and know those little tricks, then you can definitely be flexible throughout the class and know how you can help the class as a whole and each individual in the class to help them through the class. The very first week, it's important to establish some rules. So you want the rules to be kind of simple. Have your class help you come up with the rules. So, basic ones, make sure they're walking in the halls when you're going back and forth. Make sure what are some other rules that you guys think would be good for this age? Yep, talking out of turn, so one person talking at a time, or raising your hand. Keep your hands and feet to yourself. Yes, very important one for this age. Inside voices. Very good, very good. Anything else? We had one in my class, because we're going into these places that it's classrooms that they have all kinds of stuff out, and we don't want to be touching anything or sitting in their desks or anything like that. So we had the rule of no touching anything. I can't remember exactly how we phrased it. They helped us come up with it. And so, just different things like that. You want to make sure that you don't have like a whole list. Make sure that it's just enough that will kind of cover your bases and if they're kind of broad, that kind of helps too, because then it's like everything can fit into this rule. So, but if you help them come up with those and then review them throughout, like each week, if you review them and say, hey, do you guys remember what our rules are? They'll right off the bat, like at the very beginning, they'll remember the rules, and it helps them remind them to do it every week. It helps to have them written down. I did a poster board, but you can write them down on the board so that they can see them. Even though some of these kids may not read, I will tell you that 3-year-old knew exactly all of those rules and which order they were, even though he'd never been in school. So it kind of does help to go over that every week. And then when you make sure that you're consistent. So if you have a rule of raising your hand before we talk, and there's the one child over here that's blurting out every answer, just try to ignore that, and praise the child who is raising their hand. Oh, thank you, so-and-so, for remembering to raise your hand. That's one of our rules. And if you do that and be consistent, then the rest of them will follow the rules too. So let's see. That kind of leads us into positive reinforcement. Have you guys ever heard of this term? So positive reinforcement is just giving them praise and being positive when they're doing the behavior that you want them to do. So how can we do this? How can we encourage your kids to do the behavior that you want them to do? Reward them. Very good. Yes, put smiley faces on the board, and then if they get so many smiley faces, they get a prize at the end. Yep, that's a good way to do it. Any other ideas? I did stickers. And it's amazing what they'll do for a sticker. So even if they just take it home or we put it on a poster board, I put my rules on a poster board, and every time I caught them following one of the rules, it's like, oh, put a sticker on the poster because you were following that rule. So anything like that. So really, you can be creative in the way that you're rewarding the kids. Like you can do whatever your heart desires, as long as they're excited about that and they want to behave to. And you want that positive behavior. One thing though to keep in mind when you have those rewards, if they don't earn the reward, if you're having like a really hard class and they just keep losing their tally marks or whatever, make sure you don't give them that reward, because it kind of loses the effect. Make sure that they do, like even if it's like, okay, we've lost 2, now let's really try hard for a minute, and then I'll give you those 2 tally marks back. So make them earn it back. So if they've lost it, don't reward them anyway. So does that make sense? And then praise, praise, praise. Like definitely everything that they are doing right. Make sure that you notice it and let them know. Another thing is with the negative behavior, try to ignore it. A lot of it you can ignore. So if there's something going on that they're not hurting themselves or hurting others, you can just ignore, and you can ignore it. Then they'll try to change it to get your attention to the positive behavior, and then you can, oh, thank you for sitting down. Now you can do this activity or whatever. Also, another thing is if there is anything with the negative behavior, try not to call it out in front of everybody else. If you need to kind of pull them over to the side a little bit and kind of talk to them, just one-on-one, so it's not bringing attention to the whole class. Hey, when you hit so-and-so, and just kind of have that like little conversation with them rather than in front of everybody. We're going to kind of talk about some helpful hints for the curriculum. Make sure that you know the curriculum. Make sure that you are very familiar with it. And if you and your co-teacher break it up to where you're teaching this and you're teaching this, make sure you even know what the other person is teaching, just so that you can jump in and be prepared. Rather than having just one person do it all, make sure that you're a team and you're working together to teach the class. So, and you can't have your manuals. You have to just use cue cards, kind of like me. So, because it's really boring for anybody. Have you guys ever had professors that are just like reading? I've had classes that it's just like this, and they're even like walking around and just talking like this. Oh my gosh. With this class, you'll lose them. Like, you will lose them if you are focused on, even if you like forget it and you have to like just kind of wing it. Oh yeah, the concept was this. I don't remember exactly what I'm supposed to say, but I can improvise and come up with something. You're going to keep their attention a lot better than if you're like, I don't remember, oh my gosh, even with your cue cards. So if you know it well enough that you can just be like, oh yeah, the concept was this, and I'm trying to teach this, and even though I don't know the exact words, I can do this. Does that make sense? So definitely know your curriculum, and everything in the curriculum has a purpose. Every activity that's in there, every little lecture that is in there. I'm going to make you guys stand up and do head, shoulders, knees, and toes. I see a few eyes. It's after lunch. We all want a nap. But yeah, make sure that you know the purpose of each of those little discussions and books and stuff. So we're going to practice. I'm going to read you the story. So kind of like with when you're doing a lecture and you're like monotone or just reading from your notes, when you read a story to kids, you want to make sure that you've read it beforehand so you kind of know what it's about so that you're not just reading like this. Because first of all, they're going to be like, I can't see. Then second of all, that's not very fun to just watch it like this. So, and then the other thing to keep in mind is try to figure out what the purpose of that story is so that you can ask the kids, hey, is that a good choice for that child to do? Or is, what would you guys do if you were in this situation? So kind of know the story so that you can kind of help the kids interact. And then also, some of the stories are kind of long. So if you've read it beforehand and you're losing the attention of your kids, you can summarize it and just be like, and this happens. And then you turn to the next page. And, so you can kind of just get through the story a little quicker because some groups just have a hard time sitting through those books, where some groups will sit forever. So I'm going to read this book. This is actually not in your in your sight box with all of the books, but it's kind of a fun one. So, The Case of the Missing Donut. So this will kind of give you an idea how to read. Donuts, how the sheriff loved them. Cinnamon sprinkle, glazed, powdered, all so tasty, all so delicious, especially powdered. The sheriff and his deputy were working on a special assignment today. Their mission? To bring a dozen donuts safely home. Together, the sheriff and the deputy greatly admired one donut in particular. It was so plump and powdery. Then the sheriff closed the lid. Time to get these babies home. Definitely make it fun. Like this, nobody's judging you in that class. Like, no, you, when I first walked into that class, I had, my co-teacher had like no experience with kids. He was so nervous to be in that class. I was like, oh, I've got this, no problem. And I think by the time that first class got over, he was like, oh my gosh, you are crazy, because you can go in there and you can be crazy, you can be fun with them, and nobody's judging you. And they don't care, because if you're acting like one of them, they're gonna love you more. So, definitely. Now back to our story. It was a big job. The sheriff had to walk with great care, otherwise the donuts might wiggle around in the box. Their sprinkles might fall off. They might even get smashed. Who likes donuts? What kind of donuts do you guys like?
Maple.
Maple. Oh. Is that everybody? Just maple? What do you like?
Regular glazed.
Just regular glazed, huh? Yeah.
It's gotta be Krispy Kreme though.
Krispy Kreme? Okay. All right. Who knew what might be going on inside that box right at this very moment? Look at all those donuts. Don't they look delicious? Maybe we'll have to have ice cream and donut stuff after class. Better take a look. See, deputy? Phew. All was well in Donut World. But wait a minute. Was that one a little smushed? Yes, it certainly was. This would not do. The sheriff decided to even it up. Still not perfect. And just a teeny bit more. What would you guys do if you were in that? Yes. So what do you guys think you would do if you were in this situation with an uneven donut?
Eat them all.
Just eat them all? Yes. What did you say?
I said just take care of it.
Just take care of it. So you think he's doing what he should, huh? Uh-oh. Donut down. the sheriff had only been trying to make a good thing better. But now look what had happened. A donut had disappeared. Its whereabouts were unknown, and the evidence was gone. Right, Deputy? But there were still so many donuts left. No one would ever have to know that a donut crime had been committed. Onward, said the sheriff to his deputy, and he closed up the lid. The sheriff and his deputy tried to act normal. The sheriff tried to carry the donuts normally. He tried to smile at the citizens of the town normally, but acting normal wasn't that easy. You guys see his face? Does he look guilty? Well, hello, Sheriff, said Mrs. Flaherty. How was that donut? The sheriff froze. Good morning, Sheriff, said Mr. Bryant. Did you enjoy your donut? Did Mr. Bryant have X-ray vision? Just then the sheriff saw his friend Kareem. Greetings, Sheriff, he said. I see it's an excellent day for donuts. Yikes. Was the sheriff living in a town of mind readers? Destination home. And in they went. Well, look who's back, said the sheriff's dad. How was your walk? Good. Was the sheriff's dad looking at him funny? Did anything interesting happen? Said the sheriff's mom. No. Was the sheriff's mom looking at him funny? Said the sheriff's dad to the sheriff's mom. It looks as if we're missing one donut. So we are, said the sheriff's mom. So we are. Were the sheriff's parents onto him? Sheriff, would you happen to have any information about this case? It was no use trying to get away with the crime in this town, especially when you were the sheriff. Okay, what if you were in this sheriff's shoes? What would you do?
Tell the truth.
Tell the truth. Any other ideas? Anybody go hide? Go run? Run. Take the rest of the donuts with you when you're in. Tell the truth, said the sheriff. How did you know? Good question, said the sheriff's mom. Maybe the deputy can answer it, said the sheriff's dad. The sheriff looked at the deputy. The deputy looked at the sheriff. And then they both looked in the mirror. Case closed. So even though that was not in our, I just went up, I have like a loft in my house and it's like filled with children's books. And I just went and picked that one up. I'm like, oh yeah, that's a fun one. I've only probably read it once. And so just to give you an idea of, even if you have to kind of take your time through the book, ask questions, interact with them, make it fun. Even this one, I could find a concept out of it that was a good concept that you can talk to them about, like lying versus telling the truth was a good concept out of here. So we're going to take a little breather, and I want you guys to come up and find a book. All of these books are actually in your site box at your sites, and so can kind of give you an idea of what kind of books are in there. And take a book and then practice reading it with a friend or a partner. So you guys will take, like 3 to 5 minutes. We'll do that. Let me give you an idea of what will be at this site. So you will have a box that will have these books in there, and it also has a CD player with some CDs that have like children's songs on there. And then you have paper and markers and crayons. That's about it. So if you're going through the lesson and there's extra stuff that you might need to gather, if you don't have it at home or can't find anything, improvise. There was one where we used puppets. If you don't have a puppet, just get a paperback sack and, with paper, just come up with something like a face or something, or whatever you have around the house, just be creative. And if there's anything that you need to come up with, if you have a niece or a nephew that you can bring, there are a box of toys. So there was one of my getting to know you activity. I'm like, I have to spruce this up and sometimes you'll read in there and you'll know your class because you've already bonded with them, you've already got to know them, and you're gonna read the lesson, you're gonna be like, I'm gonna lose them. They are not gonna be interested in this at all. So then, get your thinking caps out and get your creativity. And even if you're not creative, just remember to have fun. So there was one time I just went and got some blocks that were out of the toddler toys that were there. And we did some kind of activity as they had to build the blocks as we were getting to know each other. So you can just throw anything in there that you think would be beneficial to your group of kids or with the lesson. So don't stray too far from the lesson. Make sure that you still are teaching the concepts that we're trying to teach. But if you need to add stuff to make it a little bit more exciting, you can do that, okay? Let's see. So when you go into your classroom, make sure you take a picture. Very first thing, take a picture of that classroom so that you know exactly how it is. Poor Jessica, she's been through this before. So that way and if anything gets moved and I would personally for your group, I know the sites that I was at, the older classes didn't, and I wish they would have too, because they've been sitting in the chairs all day already. That's the last thing they want to do is come and sit in more desks. So push the chairs and push the tables out so that you have a good size that they can get up, like play Duck, Duck, Goose, and do our head, shoulders, knees, and toes. I know you all are ready for another round. And through the lessons, it's kind of a mixture of stuff. You'll have active games, and you'll have parts where you're trying to explain something. You'll have parts where you're asking them and kind of interacting with your class. So you'll kind of have different phases and stuff. One thing to keep in mind is when you are preparing the lessons and you get to know your class, if there are activities that you may have to tone it down a little bit. For example, we were playing Duck, Duck, Goose, and I had a couple little crazier boys that I was a little bit worried about maybe falling or getting a little bit too wound up and crazy. And so when we played Duck, Duck, Goose, we sat down and I'm like, okay, how am I going to keep these kids from bumping because we don't want to have any blood? And so we played Duck, Duck, Goose like we were on the moon. And we were all in space boots. And so instead of getting up and running around the room like you normally play Duck, Duck, Goose, we were being space astronauts and we were doing this. So if you need to tweak it a little bit because you know that a certain child is not going to handle it very well, do it, And so just keep that in mind. Also, I forgot to mention a little bit earlier, when you're doing that positive reinforcement and behavior stuff in your class, it's important to tell the kids what you want them to do versus what you don't want them to do. So if they're in the hall and they're running and you say, don't run, they actually won't hear the don't, all they hear is the run. So they're just running because you're telling them to run. So if you, instead of saying don't run, you say, walk, please, or walking feet, then they hear that, oh, I'm supposed to walk, and then they'll walk. So try to keep that in mind when you're in your classrooms. It's really hard, but if you just try to remember, oh, what is it that I want them to do? Sit down instead of, don't stand on the chairs, different things like that. So keep that in mind. Then also another helpful hint, I saw this in one of the other classrooms, and it was a really good idea. So at the SFP house, they do have carpet mats. So if you get into your classroom and you want to use those, let your site education coordinator know, and they can get those for you. But then another class that I saw, they had just brought little kid blankets in, and they had them sitting like, a good little size for each child, and they all had their own space. And it was nice because they could, when they were, kind of antsy, they kind of laid on it or sat on it, and they were still participating and engaged in the class. They weren't like touching everybody else in the class. So that's something that you can do in your class too. So that was a little nice thing. The videos in the curriculum, you'll probably want to either download them beforehand, or I found that if you have it already opened up on your laptop or tablet before you walk into school, that you can play it without downloading it. Because some of the schools, the Wi-Fi or like I was even trying to just get pulled up on my phone, and then as soon as I went into the classroom, nothing. You couldn't get text, you couldn't get phone calls, nothing. So just make sure that you think of that and prepare ahead of time to make sure that you are prepared and you have everything that you need. If there's anything that requires prep work from the lessons, just do it prior. You're getting that hour and a half of prep time, so just use it and get it all completed so that you're not in there trying to do it when all the families are coming or doing it in class, that you're all ready to go to give them your 100%. So transitions can be kind of tricky for children. They don't like change. I don't like change either. I don't know if anybody really likes change. So it's good to just give them a heads up, in 1 minute or 2 minutes, we're going to be cleaning up what we're doing now, and we're going to be moving on to the next activity. Or after this activity, we're going to go to the bathroom and take a break, just so that they can kind of get used to the idea that there's going to be change in the schedule or whatever you guys are doing. So, and sometimes this is also something with your flexibility. If you are going through your lesson, because it will kind of tell you the order of stuff that's going through, if you can feel that the kids are not going to handle another sit down and talking portion, but you know that an activity is coming up in like the near future, switch it around. As long as you're like teaching from the curriculum. Did you have a question?
Oh, yeah, sorry, I don't want to interrupt.
No, you're
I
fine.
was just wondering, because you just brought up the bathroom thing.
Yes.
If it's like a young, maybe like 4, or that has to go to the bathroom, but you're not supposed to separate as teachers, what are you supposed to do?
I'll talk about that in just like a few minutes. That's my very next section. So yes, we'll address that. So if you need to switch things up with the curriculum, go ahead and do it. And then, maybe you do the activity and then you come back and talk about it a little bit later. Just so that just make sure that the curriculum has some flow to it. Don't be jumping around so much that there's no rhyme or reason and there's no purpose to it. Make sure that you're, kind of transitioning. Okay, we're talking about this right now. We're going to do this activity because it goes along with this. And then, does that make sense? So just make sure that there is purpose for everything that you're doing, but if you have to kind of tweak it a little bit, definitely do it because it'll be better for the kids. So now, just like, let's see. So yes, now your question. So her question was, if a child needs to go to the bathroom, you have to take the whole class and both co-teachers. So nobody can be alone by themselves ever. Like, a child has to be with a group, or if that child, because in some situations in the one side I was at, we had a child that would just kind of leave class and just kind of go all of a sudden, and we actually put an extra teacher in that class in case that happened. So then, and I would be on the lookout. So if that happened, then he would go and I would go, and we'd both follow her because she can't be by herself and he can't be there with her by themselves. That didn't come out very well. But anyway, so there always has to be 2 interns or family coaches, and then anywhere you go. So does that make sense? Does that take care? Yeah, so you can't just send the child by themselves to go to the bathroom. You all have to go. And then a couple other things to keep in mind is it's probably best not to have a lot of physical contact with the kids and not having them sit on your lap or different things, they do get comfortable with you. And it is hard because they do want to sit in your lap or they do want to give hugs and stuff because that's just how kids are. But just be aware of it and make sure, maybe it's just like a little side hug or a pat or something, or if they're wanting to sit in your lap, just here, come sit next to me, or different things like that. So just be aware of that, kind of avoid that that physical. It's mostly for our safety and make sure that it's a sad world that we live in. Let's see, and then if a child gets hurt while they're in your care, what do we do? Hopefully we've drilled it into you enough. Incident report, yes. Even if you think they're okay, you never know. They may have bumped and they look okay, but they may go home and have a bruise show up. So it's always better to just be on the safe side so then they don't come back and like, what did you do to my child or whatever. It's documented and we're covering our tracks, so definitely over-report. Now, let's see. So the schedule for the night, the first half an hour will be dinner, and they've probably kind of gone over this, right? So then after dinner, you'll go into your classes, and it's a good idea to stop at the bathroom on your way, and then you don't have to have that extra transition. Just stop in the bathroom, let any of them go. If you want to stop at the drinking fountain, get drinks, whatever, and then head into class. Then you'll take the first about 40 to 45 minutes, and you'll work on your curriculum and teach them out of your curriculum. Then that's probably a good time to take a break. I don't know, some sites, the site education coordinator will come and give you kind of a warning. Some of them, they'll kind of leave it to you to kind of break that up. But it's definitely a good idea. And sometimes if your class is really needing a break before that mark, go ahead and take that 5-minute break and then come back. So you'll take that break and then you'll come back and continue to teach out of the curriculum. And then the last 20 minutes of the night, they go to family class. Your class will not go to family class. So any child who is 8 and up will go to family class. So you guys are the lucky ones that you may get to stay with your class, or if they have extra help or service volunteers or anything that can come and step in, then you may go to your class. So just be aware of that. By that point, the kids are pretty much done with the curriculum. If you have more activities from your curriculum that you think that they can handle, go ahead and keep teaching during that time. If not, have an extra activity planned. If it's coloring or toys from or puzzles, or there's a lot of stuff at the site, or if you have stuff at home, you can bring. Somebody I think went to the dollar store and bought like a Go Fish or a memory card game or something. Just kind of have something ready for them so that they are not just sitting there twiddling their thumbs while everybody's in parent class. So that's kind of the night.
So sometimes kids are really short and they can't reach the drinking fountain, but you're not supposed to lift them, so how do they get a drink if they like dying of thirst?
We had that situation too, and I think at the very beginning of the program, I was like, is there because we were still in dinner, and I was like, is there somebody from your family that can help you? By the end, I just kind of lifted them up. As long as it's not like a bear hug or like anything that's inappropriate, you can kind of just lift them up and help. But then be careful too, because here we are with the incidents too, because if all of a sudden you drop that child, then we have an incident. So, and there's been, in some of the other classes, I think they bring up like the situation where they had like a baby carrier and they were carrying up the steps or something. So you're not supposed to pick them up at all. So good question. I don't really know how to, I think just use your best judgment. Okay. If the big brother is walking down the hall with them, maybe encourage them, hey, can you help your brother reach the drinking fountain? Yeah, just best judgment.
Like the 20 minutes at the end that we have to prepare an activity, it doesn't have to be curriculum. We can just plan an activity.
No, well, it would, if there's a ton, like, because sometimes you don't get through all of your curriculum. So if you can continue to teach your curriculum, then do. But it's fine to have an extra activity on top of it, especially if because there's times where that last 15 minutes, they're just done. And they just kind of need to veg. But definitely try to get through all of your curriculum, try to get through everything that you want to teach before.
Is it ever appropriate during that time to like watch like a Disney show or like, I don't know, show, like something like that where they could just like sit and watch?
Yeah, I probably would probably have another activity besides that. The videos that they do watch are very short. They're like 2-3 minutes at the most. A lot of them are like different songs, different activities like that. So I'd kind of steer away from that kind of activity and more something that's interactive. So now we are going to practice teaching. So you guys all have your manuals. So let's just so in the back is your preschool lessons. Let's just focus on the very, very first one. Let's just have a group of 2 and a group of 3. And then just in your first lesson, let's have you do, why don't you guys focus on the very first, so that like when you go through here, the very first part is like your introduction where you have your little icebreaker and your wiggles out, and then you kind of do a summary of what you've learned last week. And then after that, you get into the curriculum. So let's go ahead and have you do showing love and kindness to others, because that's kind of the first time. You'll also talk to them about my time every time, kind of getting them to report if they've done my time with their family. So they're going to do this, and if you 3 will work on the stress busters, okay? So I want you to prepare and make sure that you're co-teaching rather than just one person teaching. And you want to make sure when you're preparing your lesson that it's kind of got the different levels of a classroom. Does that make sense? So you have your like basic where I'm just talking at you because I've done that a lot for the last hour. Then you have the one that you're more interacting and asking them questions or whatever. And then you have your activity where they're practicing practicing what you're teaching them. So kind of go through and incorporate each one of those levels in your little mini lesson that you're going to do. We're going to prep for 5 minutes and then be prepared to teach for like 5 minutes. Okay? So, and then you have to do it on cue cards because that's how we teach.